Shema, Yasharallah, Ayahayinawa, Yahweh, Akad, Shema, Yasharallah, Ayahayinawa, Yahweh, Akad. First and foremost, I to give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Kakadash. Much respect to you, Akim Naguafium, pushing the work of the Lord in true faith sincerity, and promoting your body as a living sacrifice. So today in this lesson, in this edification, we're basically going over how abortion is off according to the scriptures, man. And I got inspiration to do this lesson because when I was at the plantation, when I was at school, there was basically someone I knew, was my age, very young, because I'm a very young man. But at the end of the day, I asked her, because she had like an ultrasound, or something like that. So I'm curious. I'm like, are you gonna abort the baby to just test her mind? And then she was like, no, 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 I hope not. And then these two other girls, I questioned them. I was like, do you think, are you gonna abort a baby? Do you believe in abortion? And then they were like, yeah. They was like, yeah. It was like at the end of the day, they were like, if worse comes to worse, I'm gonna abort the baby because that could ruin my life. But the thing is, I asked them, man, at the end of the day, isn't that murder? And then it was like, yeah, but at the end of the day, they couldn't ultimately refrain, ultimately understand what I was saying by ultimately telling them that abortion is, murder, man. And you know what? She had the nerve to say that the baby doesn't have any feelings, man. It doesn't have any feelings yet. You see how demonic that is, man? We live in a world where they allow, shit like this to happen. They allow people to be murderers, man. Because at the end of the day, man, you have to take responsibility for ultimately doing the acts that you did, man. You should have stayed protected. You should have stayed protected, but y'all want to just raw dog, man. That's what happens, man. Y'all taking birth control. Birth control is not good for you, man. That's not good for you. It leads to depression. The symptoms of taking birth control, man, is depression, man. So y'all want me to be out here, now out here, ultimately getting piped by everybody, man. And ultimately not taking responsibility for ultimately what's yours, man. But at the end of the day, having an abortion is ultimately murder, man. And in this wicked ass world, it's acceptable. People are having rights to ultimately have the ability to abort, offspring, man. And that's off, man. That's fucking off, man. Because at the end of the day, y'all could have been aborted yourselves, man. Your mom could have aborted your ass, man. But to water y'all about Shemel Shai, that didn't happen, man. You gotta think y'all about Shemel Shai every day that you weren't aborted, man. The Lord didn't put the spirit a demon like spirit to hop on your parents to ultimately abort you, man. You gotta say Kala Yahweh about Shemel Shai every day, man. All praises, man. Because at the end of the day, we could have been aborted, man. But now let's get to the point, man. Let's go to the book of Exodus, chapter 20, and let's start at the first verse, and then we're going to go on down to the point. Let's go to the book of Exodus, chapter 20, and verse 1, and it reads, And God spake all these things, saying, I am the Lord, thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, man. So this is where, ultimately, Moses was being ultimately revealed the laws, from Yahweh, man, who's God, man. So and ultimately, this is the first, law. Thou shalt have no gods, no other gods before me. And so basically this is showing the law, but ultimately let's get to the point. Let's go to the book of Exodus, chapter 20 and verse 13. Exodus 20 and verse 13, and it reads, Thou shalt not kill, man. So that's one of the most important commandments, is knowing that ultimately you're not supposed to kill, man. And committing the act, getting an abortion, that you're basically being a murderer, man. You're killing innocent offspring, man, that didn't do nothing, man. And you have to ultimately take accountability for what you did, man. You know, people was running to abortions, man. How many abortions you gonna get, man? You know? And that's just wicked, man, because ultimately you're being a murderer, man. And being a murderer is off according to the scriptures, man. You know, you're not supposed to commit murder, man. You know? So what? That could ruin your whole life, man. You need to take responsibility of your actions, man. We live in a world where people get instant gratification and ultimately don't receive consequences for the acts that they've done, man. But in the kingdom of heaven, you know, in righteous rulership, you know, abortion's not going to be a thing, man. You know, because ultimately, we're not going to be in a dead state, you know, in a zombified state to even commit an act like that, because ultimately everything's going to be decently done in order. You know, people, when they ultimately are going to, you know, when brothers, you know, ultimately going to pop women, you know, it's going to be for a purpose, man. You know, and ultimately it's going to be for ultimately replenishing and ultimately repopulating the earth, man. You know, repopulating the Israelites, man. You know, so ultimately when we popping these women, you know, and having babies and all that, man, it's gonna be for a reason, man. It's gonna be for a purpose. It's not gonna be ultimately for pleasure. It will be for pleasure, you know what I'm saying? But ultimately it's a purpose, because ultimately the Lord ultimately said, man, we have to be fruitful and multiply, man. You know, we have to continue to multiply. We can't subtract. You know, and the Lord didn't command us to subtract, man. The Lord told us to be fruitful and multiply, you know, not to subtract, you know, ultimately our offsprings, man. So in the kingdom of heaven, we're going to ultimately be fruitful and multiply, meaning that we're going to continue to produce offspring, man. You know, we're going to continue to have, you know, repopulate the earth, man. You know, through the act of sex, man. Through the act of reproducing, man. You know, and we gonna be popping. The men are gonna be popping multiple women, man, and it's gonna be, you know, for a purpose, man. You know, it's gonna be for a purpose, man. You know, to ultimately reproduce, because ultimately that's the main, you know, reasoning of ultimately, you know, having intercourse, man. It's the main reason for it, man, is for ultimately procreation, man. You know. All right. And now let's go to the book of Let's go to the book of let's go to Shalak, man. The video cut off, but ultimately let's go to the book of Exodus chapter 21 and verse 22, because ultimately it's against the law. If you're a doctor, you know, and you give a woman a abortion, man, that's off according to the scriptures, you know, and that's a crime, man. You know, and now let's go to the book of Exodus chapter 21 and verse 22, and it reads, "If men strive and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart from her, yet no mischief follow, he shall surely be punished, according to the woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine," man. So ultimately, man, if a man strive and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit should depart from her, meaning, you know, abortion, you know, because ultimately when these doctors, you know, ultimately abort the baby, you know, that's ultimately a crime, you know, that's ultimately a crime, and he should surely be punished, you know. So ultimately, man, you know, that's a crime to ultimately abort, you know, ultimately, you know, cause, you know, a woman's fruit to ultimately depart from her, man, and ultimately perish, man. That's off. And ultimately, this is what you're gonna this. You're not only gonna receive judgment, but look at the latter verses, man. I'm gonna read it in verse 23. And if any mischief follow, then shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, and burning for burning, and wound for wound, or stripe for stripe, man. So ultimately, man, you know, ultimately you will be judged horrifically for ultimately committing these acts, man. You know, basically causing a woman's fruit to depart from her, you know, and you doctors are gonna get heavy judgment, man. You know, because ultimately that's murder, man. But at the end of the day, you main people that's, you know, ultimately gonna be judged, you know, is you men and women out there who have the idea in your head to ultimately abort, you know, the offspring, man, and abort babies, man. You know, you're supposed to take accountability of the act that you've done, man, and you have to ultimately consider that, You could have been, aborted yourself, man. You could have been aborted. You got to give all praises and glory to Yahweh Shemashah. You got to thank God every day that you weren't aborted, man. That the Lord didn't put a wicked, evil spirit on your parents to abort you, man. Because ultimately that's judgment at the end of the day. You know, because at the end of the day, whosoever perish if being guilty. But at the end of the day, man, getting abortions, that ultimately is murder because you're killing innocent people, man, innocent kids, you know. And that's crazy, man. That the talk I was talking about in the beginning of the video I had with this girl, that she said, man, that these babies, don't even have feelings yet, man. Of course they're gonna have feelings, man. Of course they're gonna have feelings. They just came back from the spirit world, of course, man. Any type of life on earth has feelings, man. And you ultimately, man, you can't murder at the end of the day. Thou shalt not kill, man. When you commit an act of abortion, you are ultimately murdering, offspring, man. You know? You are murdering offspring, man. So ultimately, when you have intercourse, man, have sex, man, you ultimately, become impregnated, woman become impregnated, or you man impregnate the woman, do not, out here, trying to get a quick, to get an abortion, man, because ultimately, man, you murdering offspring, man. You are a murder. You have to take accountability of the acts that you're doing, man. Next time you gotta think smarter, man. Next time you gotta think smarter. But at the end of the day, that just shows how we're in hell, man. That abortions are occurring. We have to fucking wear condoms, man, for protection. That's how we're in a wicked ass world, man. You know, you in the kingdom of heaven, man. There's gonna be no need for condoms, man, because ultimately, you know, in the kingdom, everything's gonna be decently done in order. So when you're ultimately popping a woman, a woman's getting popped, it's ultimately for a purpose, man. It's ultimately for procreation because ultimately the Lord, commanded us to be fruitful and multiply, man. As he told Adam and Eve. So ultimately, man, we're supposed to be fruitful and multiply, man. We're not supposed to subtract, you know. We're not supposed to subtract offspring, man. We're not supposed to eliminate offspring. We're supposed to ultimately multiply, meaning that we increase. You're increasing offspring, man. So that meaning that you can't be out here killing babies, man. Ultimately, the kingdom of heaven, that's not, everything's going to be run decently in order, and ultimately, man, repopulation and major procreation is going to be happening, man, you know? So, man, Lord willing, you were edified. Let's give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem El-Shai, Ba'ashem Kakadash. Abortion is off according to the scriptures. Shalom, Akim. Stay up.